The morning Ilara Voss walked out of the pack ceremony, the sky was the same pale gray it always was. No storm came, no thunder, just a quiet, ordinary sky above a woman whose entire world had just been taken from her in front of 100 people. Alpha Damon Reed had stood at the center of the ceremony hall, in front of the elders, in front of every wolf in the Redstone pack, and said the words clearly and without hesitation. "I reject you, Ilara Voss, as my Luna and as my mate." The hall had gone silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then came the laughter. Not everyone laughed. Some people looked at the floor, some looked at the wall. But enough of them laughed, enough that the sound followed her out of the hall, down the stone steps, and through the trees until she could no longer hear it. She did not cry until she was deep enough in the forest that no one could see her. That was 3 years ago. Now she lived at the northern border, in a small building that served as a clinic for wolves passing through. She kept it clean, she kept it stocked. She treated wounds and fevers and broken bones, and she asked no questions about where people came from or where they were going. People appreciated that. They left her small things in thanks: dried herbs, jars of honey, sometimes a note. She did not think about the pack. She did not think about Damon Reed or the woman they had celebrated in her place. She thought about the work, and the work was enough. Her wolf had gone quiet. Not gone, just quiet, like a fire that had been turned very low to save fuel. She told herself that was fine. On a cold Tuesday in November, a man arrived at her door, bleeding from his side and barely standing. He was large, the kind of large that told her immediately he was a king's guard, and his face had the specific blankness of someone using every piece of willpower they had just to stay upright. "Sit," she said, and he sat. She worked for 2 hours. The wound was deep, infected, and had not been properly cleaned before someone had tried to close it. She fixed all of that, one careful step at a time, and when it was done, the guard looked at her with something in his eyes she had not seen directed at her in a long time. "Respect. You saved my life," he said. "You kept yourself alive long enough to get here," she answered. That was the harder part. He left 4 days later, healed and straight-backed and quiet. She thought that was the end of it. It was not the end of it. 12 days later, a single wolf arrived at her border clinic, just before sunset. No guard, no entourage. He was tall, with dark hair, and eyes so steady, they made her feel like the ground had shifted slightly beneath her feet. He wore no symbol of his rank, but her wolf, who had been quiet for 3 years, made a low, sudden sound deep in her chest that she had to work very hard to ignore. "You treated one of my men," he said. "I treat anyone who comes here," she said. He said what you did was not possible. He was very sick. People exaggerate when they are grateful. The man studied her for a moment. "I am Calum." She knew who he was. Every wolf in every pack knew who he was. Alpha King Calum, the most powerful alpha alive, whose wolf was said to be older and stranger than any living wolf spawned, whose territory covered more land than 4 regular packs combined. He had been without a chosen Luna for 6 years. No one knew why. The packs had theories. They always had theories. "I know," she said. "Would you like some tea?" He looked at her as if no one had offered him tea in a very long time. "Yes," he said. "Thank you." He stayed for an hour. They talked about herbs, about border conditions, about the early winter. He asked her nothing personal. She asked him nothing personal. When he left, her wolf pressed forward in her chest, like a hand against a door, and she pressed back, and they reached a careful truce. He came back 2 weeks later, then again the week after that. Furleys, she did not ask why. He did not explain. They had tea, or they sat in the small warmth of her clinic, while the cold came down outside, and something built between them, the way things do when no one is rushing them, quietly, and with a great deal of patience. She was almost comfortable with it when the letter arrived. The King's Summit was held every 2 years. Every alpha and their Luna attended. Healers were sometimes brought along, particularly senior ones. The letter from Calum's office was formal, correct, and gave her every reason to go that had nothing to do with him personally. She read it 4 times. She packed her bag. The summit was held at the neutral grounds, a vast estate that belonged to no single pack, staffed by neutrals, designed to hold 100 wolves of high rank in something approximating peace. Alara arrived by herself, with a healer's badge and a single case of supplies, and was shown to a room near the medical quarters. She was walking toward the main hall when she heard the first voice. "Is that the Voss woman? The one Damon rejected?" She kept walking. "She has some nerve showing up somewhere like this." She found her seat near the back, where the healer staff sat, and she put her hands in her lap and kept her face very still. Around her, the hall filled with people who knew her story, or thought they did. She could feel their glances like small stones. Across the hall, she saw Damon Reed arrive with Serena Vale on his arm. Serena was beautiful, in the way that made rooms rearrange themselves. She wore the Luna mark proudly. Damon looked exactly the same as he always had, tall, confident, certain of his welcome in any room. He saw Alara. He looked away so fast it was almost its own kind of answer. Calum arrived last, as kings do. The hall stood. He moved through it with the ease of someone who had never once in his life wondered if he belonged somewhere. His eyes moved across the room, with the quiet attention of a man who noticed everything. When his gaze reached her, it stopped. Just for a second. Then he continued forward. But his wolf, she felt it. That same low sound in her own chest, like two instruments tuning to the same note. She pressed it down again. That evening, Serena Vale found her alone in the medical corridor. Alara had been expecting cruelty. What she got was stranger. "I am not your enemy," Serena said. She seemed to mean it. "But I have watched how Calum looks at you, and I am telling you now, as one woman to another, if you let yourself hope, and it goes wrong again, it will break something in you that will not come back. I have seen it happen." Alara looked at her for a long moment. "I appreciate that," she said carefully. "But you are not going to leave," Serena said. "No," Alara said. "I am not." Serena nodded, like this was the answer she had expected, and walked away. That night, Alara sat on the edge of her bed with her bag on the floor beside her. She had packed it out of habit, the way people who have been hurt before pack bags as a form of protection, just in case, always just in case. Her wolf lay down inside her and refused to look at the door. She unpacked the bag. Damon came to find her on the second morning. He chose a moment when no one was nearby, which was, she thought, very much like him. He had always understood the importance of an audience, and so he also understood the specific courage required to say something without one. "I made a mistake," he said. He said it quietly. He said it to the floor, mostly. She waited to feel something large, satisfaction perhaps, or grief, or even anger. What she felt was smaller than any of those things. She felt tired. Not the tired that comes from a bad night's sleep, but the older kind. The tired that comes from carrying something for a long time. "I know," she said. I know what you thought," she said. "You thought I was not enough. And then you said it in front of everyone, so they would all know you thought it. That is the part I needed the longest to forgive." He was quiet. "I am still working on it," she said honestly. "But I am working on it." She walked away first. That too felt like something. The final ceremony of the summit was old, older than most of the packs in that hall. It was called the Choosing Night. Each Alpha King, by tradition, publicly acknowledged the wolf beside him. The bond was not a matter of choice, technically. A true wolf's bond declared itself, and everyone present could feel when it was real. It was the one thing in the world of ranks and politics that could not be faked, managed, or negotiated. The hall was full and formal, candles, old stone, the weight of tradition pressing down on every person in the room. The Alphas stood with their lunas. The elders watched. Alara stood near the back with the healer staff, her hands clasped in front of her, watching the ceremony the way a person watches something beautiful that belongs to other people. And then Calum's wolf moved. It was not dramatic, exactly. He simply turned from the center of the hall and walked, not quickly, not slowly, through the crowd. People stepped aside without fully understanding why, the way they do when something with great authority passes near them. He walked to the back of the hall. To Alara. She heard the silence arrive before she fully understood what was happening. 100 people going quiet at once is a particular kind of sound, the sound of breath being held, of a room recalibrating. Calum stood in front of her. His wolf was entirely forward. She could feel it in the air between them, like heat from a fire. Her own wolf rose to meet it, not carefully this time, not with restraint. Fully. After 3 years of quiet, it rose so completely she had to brace her feet to stay standing. He knew, Calum said, quietly enough that it was only for her. From the first morning at your clinic, he knew. I told him to wait, because I did not want to frighten you. A small pause. He was very unhappy about that. She laughed. It came out before she could stop it. A short, genuine, completely undignified laugh in the middle of the most formal ceremony in the wolf world. Somewhere behind her, she heard someone gasp. She did not turn around. You could have told me, she said. You would have run. She thought about the packed bag. Yes, she admitted, probably. He reached out and touched her hand. Not dramatically, just his fingers over hers, careful and sure. Her wolf went absolutely still. Not the quiet of something suppressed, the quiet of something finally, completely at rest. She became aware, slowly, of the hall around them, of the silence, of 100 wolves who had spent 2 days watching the healer's table with varying degrees of amusement, the rejected Luna, the nobody, the cautionary tale, and who were now standing very still, holding a very specific kind of knowledge about themselves. She became aware of Damon Reed standing somewhere to her left, and she found she could not feel anything about that at all. Not satisfaction, not anger, just a calm, even distance, like looking at something through glass. The people who had laughed 3 years ago were in this room. Some of them were laughing now too, the nervous kind of laugh that people produce when a situation has moved completely beyond them. Most of them were simply silent. She did not look at any of them. She looked at Calum. I should warn you, she said. I am not very good at being in front of crowds. Neither am I, he said, which was such an obvious untruth that she laughed again. I am also still angry, she said. Not at you. At some things. I am still working through them. I know, he said. I am not asking you to be finished. I am asking you to let me be there while you work. She was quiet for a moment. Her wolf was so loud. 3 years of quiet. And now this, like a window thrown open in a closed room, all that cold, clean air rushing in at once. She thought about the morning she had walked out of the Redstone ceremony hall with the sound of laughter behind her. She thought about the forest, and the crying, and the long 3 years of making herself small enough to feel safe. She thought about packed bags and quiet wolves, and the particular loneliness of a person who has taught herself not to need anything. She thought about all of it. And then she let it sit where it was. Not gone, not forgotten, just placed carefully to one side. And she looked at the man in front of her, whose wolf had apparently been waiting for her since a cold Tuesday clinic visit, and simply refused to behave sensibly about it. All right, she said. That was all. 2 words in a silent hall, in front of everyone who had ever doubted her. It was, she thought, exactly enough. She did not look back as they walked forward. Not because she was too proud, and not because she had no feelings about what was behind her. She looked forward because her wolf was pulling her that way, warm and insistent and loud for the first time in 3 years, and she had missed that feeling so much it almost hurt. Almost. Mostly, it just felt like coming home,